morning, children. So let us continue with the chapter. So let me start speaking about the ozone layer, children. Okay. So such a wonderful protective shield or covering for our earth, which is protecting the entire earth and entire living organisms, human beings, plants, animals, birds, microbes and all. It is protecting the entire living organisms on the earth. Who is protecting? The ozone layer, which is present in the third layer of our atmosphere. It is present in our in our stratosphere. Okay. Such a wonderful shield which is protecting the entire earth, the entire living organisms, including the birds, human beings, animals, plants and all, which is protecting us from the harmful, dangerous, children, to tell you, the ultraviolet radiations which are coming from sun. Actually, these ultraviolet radiations, they contain a lot more amount of energy which are coming from energy content radiations which are coming from the sun. These are like ultraviolet radiations. In short, we call it by the name like, children, UV rays. They come from the sun. Okay. Actually, if there was no ozone layer, like ozone layer means, let me consider this as the earth. Okay, this as the earth. Let me consider it as the earth. Okay. So in the third layer of our atmosphere, we do have like a thin layer of oxygen. This oxygen molecule, which is made out of like 3 atoms of oxygen. We call it by the name like 3 atoms of oxygen, like O3. This O3 is nothing but what? This O3 is nothing but what? Ozone. 3 atoms of oxygen is nothing but the ozone layer. A thin layer which is covering entirely, which is surrounded throughout the earth, which is covering our earth, which is protecting our earth from the harmful, dangerous radiations, ultraviolet radiations coming from the sun. It will protect us. It will protect the animals, plants, crops, microorganisms, birds and all. The entire living organisms which are on the earth are being protected from the harmful radiations coming from the sun. These harmful radiations are nothing but the ultraviolet radiations. Okay. Actually, children, to speak, we can. It is ozone layer is absorbing the ultraviolet radiations. Ozone layer is absorbing the ultraviolet radiations coming from the sun. Then when actually it is going to break down, when this is going to break down as O2 and O, like oxygen breaks down to oxygen. Okay, actually this oxygen is different from this O3. O2 is different from this O3. O3 means ozone. Then children, we should grow more and more number of plants on this earth, so that these plants, they are going to produce oxygen. This oxygen, what I want to tell, this oxygen O2, when the content of oxygen becomes more in the atmosphere, later it is going to in turn go and add to the ozone. Oxygen becomes more, O2 becomes more. This oxygen goes up to the atmosphere and it joins the ozone layer, so that ozone layer becomes still more stronger. If it becomes still more stronger, it will protect the entire earth from the harmful dangerous radiations like ultraviolet radiations coming from the sun. Okay children, we should not cut the trees. We should grow more and more. We should grow more and more trees, so that they are going to produce lot amount of oxygen, and which in turn add to the ozone layer becomes still more stronger, and which is going to protect our earth and the entire living organisms on the earth. Then after this completion of a simple smallest concept like ozone, I should speak this concept ends up here children. Ozone layer and its protection. Okay, we should cut the trees. No, na? We should grow more and more trees on the earth, so that they are going to produce a lot of oxygen to our atmosphere. They are going to give us lot of oxygen back to this atmosphere, and our atmosphere becomes clear, full with oxygen, full with fresh air, so that we can live for many years. Okay. Then let me rub these things, and let me speak about like rusting of the things. Rusting, you know, it is the chemical change. Okay, it is a chemical change. Iron means Fe, ferrum, Latinium, ferrum. From that ferrum children, we take a symbol like Fe for iron. Iron with when it gets in contact with oxygen or water vapor or water or oxygen, water vapor. Okay, these all contain oxygen only children. Water or water vapor or like air or like oxygen. Oxygen is what? Which is present inside the air only. Okay, then or like I will take water, H2O. Okay, so what it is going to produce? Fe2O3. Sorry to tell you, in the last concept I had wrote this wrong, I think. Fe2O3 is what? Fe2O3 is nothing but iron oxide. Is nothing but what? Like iron oxide. This iron oxide means what? What I mean to tell here is nothing but the rust which is going to form on the iron articles. Okay. So if you people want to prevent these iron articles from getting not the rust, means try to see that they are not going to come in contact with the water. Try to see that they are not going to come in contact with where there is more amount of humidity in the air. Okay. Try to paint them regularly. So that they are not going to come in contact with the moisture content or with the water content. Okay. So that they don't get rust. So they don't get rust agudilla. So ಈ ರಸ್ಟಿಗೆ ಏನಂತಾರೆ iron oxide ಅಂತಾರೆ. Iron oxide ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಏನು? Fe2O3, nothing but the iron oxide. Then after this children, another way how can I prevent this rusting is thin layer of coating on the iron articles. Thin layer of coating on iron articles. This thin layer of coating of some metals, ಇರ್ತಾವೆ. ಈ ಮೆಟಲ್ಸ್ ಯಾವಂದ್ರೆ ಲೈಕ್ ಕ್ರೋಮಿಯಂ ಆಗಿರ್ಬೋದು ಚಿಲ್ಡ್ರನ್. ಲೈಕ್ ಯಾವ್ದಾಗಿರ್ಬೋದು, ದಿಸ್ ಅಗೇನ್ ಯು ಶುಡ್ ನಾಟ್ ಗೆಟ್ ಕನ್ಫ್ಯೂಸ್ಡ್ ದಿಸ್ ಚಿಲ್ಡ್ರನ್. ಸೊ ಈ Fe plus O2 is nothing but the oxygen content in the air. Water, it is going to make produce Fe2O3, nothing but the iron oxide, which is nothing but the rust. This I will have children now. So further, ಈಗ ರಸ್ಟಿಂಗ್ ಆಗಬಾರ್ದು ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರೆ ನಾವೇನ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೀವಿ, ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಮೆಟಲ್ಸ್ ಇರ್ತಾವ. ಈಗ ಜಿಂಕ್ ಆಗಿರ್ಬೋದು, ಕ್ರೋಮಿಯಂ ಆಗಿರ್ಬೋದು. ಓಕೆ ಚಿಲ್ಡ್ರನ್, ಕ್ರೋಮಿಯಂ ಅಥವಾ ಆರ್ zinc. Okay, this zinc this is one metal children. Okay, a coating thin coating of a layer of zinc on iron. That process is called as, listen properly, thin coating layer of the zinc on iron articles or on the iron. We call it by the name like galvanization. Galvanization ಅಂದ್ರೆ thin layer of zinc powder ಅಥವಾ zinc ನ ಆ zinc layer ಏನ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ, ಐರನ್ ಮೇಲೆ ಪೇಂಟ್ ಮಾಡೋದ್ರಿಂದ, zinc layer ನ ಐರನ್ ಮೇಲೆ ಪೇಂಟ್ ಮಾಡೋದ್ರಿಂದ ಐರನ್ ಏನಾಗುದಿಲ್ಲ, ರಸ್ಟ್ ಹಿಡಿಯುವುದಿಲ್ಲ. ಸೊ ಈ ಪ್ರೊಸೆಸ್ ಏನಂತಾರೆ, ಇಟ್ ಇಸ್ ಕಾಲ್ಡ್ ಬೈ ದ ನೇಮ್ ಲೈಕ್ ಗ್ಯಾಲ್ವನೈಜೇಷನ್. ಯೂಶುವಲಿ ನಾವು ಈಗಿನ ಐರನ್ ಪೈಪ್ಸ್ ಗಳೆಲ್ಲ ಗ್ಯಾಲ್ವನೈಜೇಷನ್ ಹಾಗೆ ಬಂದಿರ್ತವೆ. ಓಕೆ, ಸೊ ದಟ್ ಅವು ಏನಾಗಬಾರ್ದಂತ, ರೆಸ್ಟ್ ಹಿಡಿಬಾರ್ದು, ರೆಸ್ಟ್ ಹಿಡಿಬಾರ್ದು ಅಂತ. ಸೊ to prevent this rusting, usually galvanization is been done nowadays. A thin coating of zinc on the iron, is called by the name like galvanization. Okay, galvanization completes that. Then after this, I hope all are getting what I am speaking. Okay, I shall rub these things. Then after galvanization, a smallest concept, small thing like is there, like by the name crystallization ಅಂತ ಬರುತ್ತೆ. Crystallization ಅಂದ್ರೆ we can get pure crystals from the solution. ಈ ಒಂದು solution ನಿಂದ ಏನಾಗುತ್ತೆ ನಮಗೆ, we can get the pure form of crystals. I can get from the solutions. Pure form of crystals I can get from the solutions. ಈ process ಏನಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತಾರೆ, this process is called by the name like crystallization. So let me do, children, like I will take one like a beaker. Okay, I will take some amount of water in this. Okay, some amount of water in this. I have taken one beaker and I have taken some amount of water in that beaker. I will add to this. What I have to add? I will add dilute sulfuric acid. Symbol ಏನಾಗುತ್ತೆ, sulfuric acid symbol ಏನಾಗುತ್ತೆ, H2SO4. H2SO, S capital, O capital, children. H capital, S capital, O capital. Hydrogen, this is one different element. Sulfur ಒಂದು different element. Oxygen ಒಂದು different element ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತಾರೆ. ಅಂದ್ರೆ H2 ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಏನು ಕೇಳ್ತೀರಿ ನೀವು, 2, like I can tell like 2 molecules or like 2 atoms. It's better to call like 2 molecules of hydrogen is there, nothing is there, down the S means 1, consider it as 1 molecule of sulfur, 4 molecules of oxygen. Understood? Okay, so H2SO4 andre sulfuric acid, some few drops of sulfuric acid, dilute sulfuric acid I am going to add to the water. Okay, start heating it. Start heating it, children. Start heating it with the flame. Then when you start heating it, okay, when it starts boiling, now I will add to this again Now I will add to this again some powder of CuSO4. CuSO4 ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಏನು? Copper sulfate. CuSO4 ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಏನು? Copper sulfate. This is nothing but what, like copper sulfate. Copper sulfate. CuSO4. Cu means copper, S sulfur, O oxygen. Cu is one different, like one different element. Sulfur one different element. Oxygen one different element. ಎಲ್ಲ ಕೂಡಿ ಏನಾಗುತ್ತೆ? Copper sulfate. It is one compound. Elements they are going to combine. To form a compound. So this CuSO4 a compound. This is what I am mean to tell, like powder of copper sulfate powder. I am going to mix it. I will mix it. Some on 4 spoons. That will get dissolved, children, easily. Because you are heating here down, then again on 4 spoons you will add copper sulfate powder. Again that also will get dissolved. Another on 4 spoons you will add copper sulfate powder. That now starts like it doesn't get dissolved. ಅದು ಕರಗುವುದಿಲ್ಲ. ಅವಾಗ ಏನು ಮಾಡ್ತೀರಾ ನೀವು? Stop heating this. Okay? Try to dissolve, try to stir it properly. When that also does not get dissolved, some like it doesn't get dissolved means stop adding this CuSO4. Stop adding this copper sulfate powder. Now I can tell the solution has become. The solution has become like saturated. What I mean to tell? Now the solution has become like saturated solution. Solution has become saturated. Its capacity to dissolve the copper sulfate, powder has become over. It cannot further anything, like it cannot dissolve the copper sulfate powder. Its capacity to dissolve the copper sulfate powder has become empty now. It cannot further dissolve. So that kind of solution I can call it by the name like saturated solution. Now when you have stopped heating now, some like powder can remain at the bottom also. Fine, it's okay. If it remains also, fine, okay. Let it remain at the bottom. Don't mind. Then stop heating it. Now because the entire solution has become saturated solution, ಇನ್ನು ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ನೀವು ಕಾಪರ್ ಸಲ್ಫೇಟ್ ಪೌಡರ್ ಹಾಕಿದ್ರೆ ಅದು ಈಗ ಈ ನೀರು ಒಳಗೆ ಕರಗುವುದಿಲ್ಲ. It cannot further dissolve. So only I am going to call this solution as the saturated solution. Let me stop heating it. Keep it aside for 1, 2 hours, 3 hours. Let it cool down. Okay. After when it gets cooled down, children. Actually before cooling, letting it get cooled down. ನೀವೇನ್ ಮಾಡಬೇಕಾಗುತ್ತೆ? ಈಗ ನೀವು ಹೀಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇರ್ತೀರಾ. You are going to heat it out. What happens actually? The amount of water in this gets evaporated. Like evaporated. Water will get evaporated. Only a little amount of water is going to remain at the bottom. Then you stop heating it and allow it to cool down for 2 to 3 hours. Do not disturb it at all. Afterwards, you see, in the inner walls of this beaker, you can find some like powder crystals of copper sulfate. You can find the crystals of copper sulfate powder. This powder, copper sulfate powder, will be in the pure form. It is the purest form of this copper sulfate, because actually copper sulfate ಒಳಗೆ ಇರುವಂತ impurities ಏನಾಗಿರುತ್ತೆ, ನೀರೊಳಗೆ ಮಿಕ್ಸ್ ಆಗಿ evaporate ಆಗಿಬಿಟ್ಟಿರುತ್ತೆ. Copper sulfate powder ಒಳಗೆ ಇರುವಂತ impurities it will get mixed with the water, and when you are eating it will get evaporated. Whatever which is going to remain in the last at the bottom of this or on the inner walls of this beaker, we can find some pure crystals of copper sulfate. So when you get this pure crystals of copper sulfate powder, The entire process we call it by the name like crystallization. Getting the pure crystals from the solutions. Which solution here it was first? Copper sulfate solution. So I got some pure crystals of copper sulfate. So this process is called as by the name like crystallization. So I am going to end up here. Okay, next period I am going to continue with a new chapter by the name soil. Hope all you have understood. Thank you. Bye.